Hey y'all, how's it going? I'm trading the ES futures on a 2000 tick chart with the 21 EMA. So I've got the overnight high up here and the overnight low down here. These are our key levels for the day. I started trading right here at 8 Central Time as we started forming this resistance right here and pushing higher there. So notice how this measured move is met perfectly right here. So as soon as the measured move is met, it starts finding resistance and then pushing higher. And so that's where I got this overnight low. The overnight low level right here, it's very close to 830, which whenever that happens, sometimes you can just adjust it around, see exactly where it fits best. It ended up fitting pretty well right here. So anyway, once we started pushing higher there after that measured move, I wanted to find a failed second entry holding above the EMA, but I also knew that we had this possible channel in play. So you don't want to enter into that, even though it's, you have two off the highs, one off the low. It's not confirmed necessarily because it doesn't have three bounces, but you can tell that there's a possible downtrend right there. The EMA is going well along with it. Clearly there's something there, so you don't want to just enter long right into that. I wanted to break out of that and then get a bigger picture failed second entry, and then even though it only has two bounces off the highs, you can tell that there's a clear push down there, and so that'll act as a trend. And so just like when you have a sharp move down, when it breaks, you can expect prices to make an attempt at a new low, which happens on a bigger picture here. You can see downtrend, break, first attempt lower, second attempt lower, and then failure. So price action levels get bigger as more time goes on. At first, you can see here it's like downtrend, break, a couple attempts at a new low, failure, and then as more price action forms, you get bigger attempts at a new low and then a swifter failure than from over here. So anyway, but you got to play it one level at a time. This downtrend here has a break, two legs at a new low, perfectly meeting at that measured move. And so I would just want to get something that's closing out of this channel right here to go long on a nice reversal pattern. But unfortunately, we don't get that. We stay below the EMA. We push out of that overnight low and we fade back in. And when we fade back in, we of course break right here. And then you would want to see a second entry retesting the overnight low. That would be one of the best trades from this area here, is clear, two legs back, retesting, and then a close above the EMA would be very nice. But we just get a first entry, and we close above the EMA pretty quickly here, but once again, that's just a first entry. On the other side, it's a higher low, but we did have a push down here, so a sharp push down here, so I would like to see a second entry, not just a first entry. And then by the time we get that second entry, we can see these two legs down here. We're pushing out of the overnight low again, so it's not holding very well. And then by the time that you do push back above, it doesn't get above the EMA, and that's just not ideal. Clearly, it's feeling very bearish in this area right here. The overnight low was not holding well. It's not a very good retest trade, and so I didn't like that right there, especially with this this structure forming right here, this trend, the small downtrend. Then we get this higher low, clearly being held down by all this resistance right here, this trend line and the range low in the EMA. Clearly it's not wanting to go long right there, but we do just push on higher there. There's no way to get in on that, unfortunately, in a safe way, in my opinion. And so we push on up, we go sideways here, we start going into this uptrend right here within this range. The EMA is going along with it well. We can tell it's in an uptrend. The highs and the lows are fitting. And so when we break out here, it's possible we could have gotten some short if it were to move along to the side and get something closing out here. But we end up holding, which, you don't want to go long right there just because it's going along with this trend well. At the time, it'd be more like that because you have one bounce off those highs, and before you and so that's just a first entry coming off range highs. You could easily have a second leg down reaching the other side, and then this trend line could also easily hold. So at this point, you just don't know which way is going to work. You don't know if the range is going to win out to the shorts, and you don't know if this trend is going to win out for the longs. So it's best to just avoid both. When you're getting tempted to short and buy at the same time, it's best to just avoid everything. But so anyway, we push on higher here. We get this breakout pullback of this range. It's just a first entry. When you have a breakout pullback, you have to remember one thing, which is most breakouts fail. And so you want to see two attempts to fade, even if you have an uptrend right here. You want to see two attempts to fade because this is a magnet right here. This could override this uptrend right here. It could tick higher, stop you out, and then which let me extend that really quick. It'd be like that from that point right there. It could easily just tick higher, stop you out, and then close back above, and then you would have a slightly wider channel, and then, you should not have entered on that first entry. So, and that applies for huge ranges, overnight ranges, and also just smaller ones like this. You don't want to enter with the breakout until you get 2 attempts to fade back down, even if you've got an uptrend there. So, anyway, we push on up here, though. It does end up working out. We start going sideways here. We push lower here. Now we bounce off this trend line again. Once again, just a first entry. And now we're coming off of one side of a channel here, which this also applies to this trade I was talking about earlier. But when you come off one side of a channel, you want to see 2 attempts to reach the other side before you continue with that channel. It's the same as range rules. Kind of like when you're in a range, when price comes off one side, you expect to reach the other side. So if you're coming off the highs and you're pushing lower, you don't want to buy until you get 2 attempts to reach the other side, because that's telling you that price was unable to play out the range rules. And so same thing with a channel here. When you come off one side, you want to see 2 attempts to reach the other side, because these levels act as magnets. So price is attracted to them. And so the fact that we only got 1 push lower and it managed to push, below the EMA by about a point, closing below, and then not able to close back above on the good looking signal bar, that's just not ideal. You want to see 2 legs back. You don't want to take a first entry that's pushing below the EMA and then closing out of the trend. That's just not ideal. The support isn't holding, and it's a first entry. So I don't like that right there. But anyway, we push on up here. We managed to retest that high. And then at that point, it's pretty clear we're going into this range right here. We got those highs. We got those lows. It's really choppy. Yeah, unfortunately, today was not the best day. It was, it was basically just a small range day the whole day. So if we could have gotten like bigger swings back and forth, we would have had a much better day. But anyway, so we push on out. So we break out of this range. Most breakouts fail. Now also consider this uptrend has a break and a new high. So the uptrend played out. We have a breakout of this range, and most breakouts fail. And so you could get a short if we can manage to get below the EMA here. But the EMA has been up for a while. And so I don't like this right here, because it's right into the EMA. It's not off of any support really. You do have that breakout, but I want to see something actually closing back into the range so I can have confirmation that it's actually going to fade. And so then we get this lower high, but it has a clear rejection of the EMA. So that's not good for a fade entry, especially because at this point, of course, I don't have this larger range. So it's just uptrend break, new high. It's bouncing off of basically nothing. Not to mention, since it's coming off, the overnight low, and the overnight low is such an important level, you can expect to see something possibly like this. So I want to see price actually get below the EMA and hold. So let me get this back really quick. So anyway, then we do push below here. Now you can enter on an extra bar that's closing lower and still use the same stop up there. But unfortunately, this bar didn't close very well, and by the time that you would enter down there, your target would have to go pretty far out of the range, and then because your stop would have to go at least right there. And so look how far you'd be pushing it out. Even with a limit order, it would be, very far out. You'd have to push it, which you can't push it that far out of range just to be safe. And so unfortunately, nothing's set up. There's not even a way to get in with a limit order there, but we push lower here, so now we have this sharp push down, and so now we can look at this bigger picture setup. So these 2 legs right here turns into this right here. So we have downtrend, break, first attempt lower, and then this is the second attempt lower right there. Or whoops, I didn't mean to. There we go. So first attempt lower. We know that we can possibly get a second attempt lower here. And so we push back up here. We have this first entry long, or first entry short, second entry short, strongly pushing above the EMA. I'm not going to enter on that. It starts getting sideways. So I ended up not liking this because it started getting a bit sideways. It was, just a little bit too choppy. I didn't feel like that was a safe short right there. But we do make that second leg from there, which it doesn't look like the worst trade ever, because you can still see what's going on. You can see that uptrend, break, new high, and then lower high with a very strong push down right after this uptrend played out. So it's kind of borderline with going sideways, I do kind of feel like I missed out on something right there. Just, I would use the full stop all the way up there, and a lot of times when it's choppy, it will pull back on you. But yeah, there is a trade there. It's just, it was borderline with the sideways, so I skipped it. Um, but you could have gotten out at 1-to-1 on that. So 1-to-1 is very close with that overnight low at that point. But I skipped out on that. But if you took that, that's not like a bad trade. It's just I scared myself out of it with the sideways action. But I mean, with how big picture that second leg is, then I should have just taken that. So especially because there's big enough separation between these two swings there. So anyway, I did miss out on something right there. But anyways, we push lower here, so we have these downtrend, break, first attempt lower, second attempt lower, and then it's held up by this overnight low. It broke out a little bit, and then it just shot back in very strong. At first it was struggling to get above the EMA, and then it just shot above very strong right here. And then even though I'm entering after many bars have gone up and still using that same swing, that doesn't matter because it's a bigger picture trade. This setup is like the size of the whole day at this point. The whole, at this point right here, the entire day is the setup. Downtrend, break, first attempt lower, second attempt lower. We're at those overnight low, pushing off of it very strong. I like that area right there a lot. Like, it's very clearly good. And so I did know of this resistance up here, and so I decided to get out at that resistance. It looks like I entered one tick above. I entered on the end of the bar there, and that was to get out before, which if I had entered one tick above, then I would have been in the trade a lot longer. But either way, it just goes straight up after that. We have a couple legs higher there, and so there we go. We push up, we find resistance at that previous resistance, and we have this higher low right there, which I was not a fan of that right there. I noticed some folks took it in the Discord. I don't like this right here because this was acting as resistance, and so when we were able to just push down after such a strong push higher, it was clearly able to reject a strong push higher there. So I would like to see two clear attempts down before entering long, and I can see that there's a second entry. You can see the first entry long, second entry long, but it could easily just be that it went sideways and then had one push down, because this push down right there is still within this chop. This was the real first push down right there, in my opinion. So, maybe there's a scalp setup there. I don't scalp anymore. I go for minimum 1-to-1, which I know that 1-to-1 can sometimes be a scalp. But my point is, I don't go for really small trades anymore. And considering we just bounced off that level, I would want to see an extra attempt down before entering long. It's just a little bit too risky right there. And so then here we have the new high, so uptrend, break, new high. We have a first entry down, which once again, I see the first entry long there, second entry, that's really just a one attempt down right there. And it's right into these highs still, so I just avoided that. That's not an ideal looking trade. Plus it's just getting choppy with this whole area right here. So anyway, we continue up higher here, and then I was waiting for a trade here. Notice how we have this first push down, break, second push down. So we can expect price to retest the range after breaking out, because that's a breakout pullback. And so when you break out, most breakouts fail. And so when you get a breakout pullback, that's basically price testing to see if it will fade or not. And so we have a couple attempts to fade, and then we reject it, and we just push all the way back up. We were forming these lows right here. And I do like this trade, and I unfortunately was not able to get in on it. I was waiting for a while here, but then I had to go downstairs and do something for a bit, and then I came back and it was already, up there. So, my mistake. I did miss out on this trade right here. I only got the one trade for today, but I do like this as a 1-to-1. Just get out at those highs. Notice how after we have that push down, we break and then have two attempts to reach that measured move, and we get very close, and then we retest the highs, and we just zoom on up higher. So, plus we had been chopping through the EMA quite a bit. It's getting flat, so I wasn't, I'm not concerned about that, but unfortunately I was not able to get in on that trade. So anyway, uptrend, break, new high. That's another reason for this. You can expect a new high for this uptrend, and you might say, but what about measured move up? Like, wouldn't that be like a measured move up right here. Or whoops, let me get this drawn like that. And yes, that could act as a measured move, but there's one thing to consider, which is it made a double bottom, which could, that's a count reset. Sometimes it won't count as a count reset. Sometimes it'll, go up, meet the measured move, and just reverse. But that's a double bottom. That's basically like making a new low right there. So when we made that double bottom and then had a push up and then there's clear couple attempts down, it's pretty clear that it's its own trend right there. So that's why I like that right there. Thanks for watching. Hope this helped out in some way, and I'll see y'all next time.